Long ago, in a world drowning in wickedness, one man stood out: Noah. He was faithful, obedient, and chosen by God for an unthinkable mission: to build a giant wooden vessel, not for sailing, but for survival. The skies were still clear. The earth was dry. Yet Noah hammered away, building something that had never been seen before. A ship the size of a football field, made entirely of wood. People mocked him, laughed at him, but he kept going. Then came the storm. The skies opened, the ground burst, water gushed from above and below. It was a flood like no other. Everything changed. But the ark, Noah's ark, floated safely above the chaos. We've all heard the story. Animals marching in 2 by 2, rain falling for 40 days and 40 nights. A man and his family surviving the end of the world. But there's one question most people never ask. How did the ark really work? How did it stay afloat in violent waters? Where did all the animals go? What did they eat? And how did Noah and his family live in a wooden ship for over a year? Was it just a miracle? Or is there more to the story? Today, we step inside the ark. We'll explore the hidden design secrets that made it possible. From animal storage to food supplies, from waste removal to water collection. This wasn't just a big boat. It was a masterpiece of survival. So get ready to see Noah's Ark like never before. Because behind the ancient story lies something truly extraordinary. This is the untold story of Noah's Ark. The Bible gives us the exact measurements of the ark in Genesis 6:15. God told Noah to build it 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. That may sound confusing. So let's break it down. A cubit is about 18 inches, or 1.5 feet. That means Noah's Ark was around 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet tall. That's the length of 1.5 football fields, and the height of a modern 4-story building. This wasn't a simple rowboat. It was a floating structure the size of a small cargo ship, built in a time with no cranes, no metal tools, and no power saws. Just wood, pitch, and faith. How did Noah do it? Some believe he and his sons worked for decades, cutting trees, shaping beams, and assembling it plank by plank. Others think he may have hired skilled laborers. The Bible doesn't say exactly how, but we do know this: Noah followed the instructions exactly as God gave them. Every measurement, every material. What he built wasn't sleek. It wasn't fast, but it was stable, strong, and it was made to float, not sail. The ark was more like a giant box than a boat, designed to survive, not to steer. Now comes the big question: how did all the animals fit inside? We often imagine the ark bursting with giraffes, lions, bears, and elephants. But remember, God didn't say to bring every species. He said every kind. That's different. Instead of needing thousands of dog breeds, for example, Noah likely brought just one pair of the dog kind, a male and female able to produce many types later. Modern estimates suggest that the total number of animals needed could be around 35,000, not millions. Still a big number. So how did he manage? The ark had 3 decks, or floors. The space was divided into small stalls or cages. Most animals didn't need huge areas. Many would have been young, smaller in size, lighter in weight, and easier to manage. Some researchers believe Noah stored food and hay along the edges, using shelves or bins. Water, collected from rainfall or stored in clay jars and barrels. But what about the smell? The waste? The heat? There are theories about ancient ventilation shafts built into the sides or roof of the ark. Sloped floors could have helped waste flow into certain areas, maybe even into channels that were cleaned regularly. Others believe God gave Noah wisdom to manage it all. Whatever the case, the design of the ark wasn't random. It was purposeful, organized, and efficient. A wooden zoo that floated, not just for a day, but for over a year, through the fiercest storm in human history. Imagine trying to feed thousands of animals every single day for over a year. That was Noah's challenge, and he had no refrigerators, no freezers, no supermarkets. So how did he do it? Most likely, Noah and his family stored dried grains, seeds, hay, and preserved fruits. These kinds of food last a long time without going bad. For animals like cows, goats, and elephants, hay and straw would have been packed and stacked in large bundles. For birds and smaller creatures, they may have used seeds and grains kept in sacks or bins. For humans, the meals were probably simple: bread from dried grain, dried fruits like dates or figs, maybe some nuts, legumes, and water-based stews. Nothing fancy, just enough to stay alive and strong. But where was all this food stored? The ark was divided into 3 decks. Most animals lived on the middle and lower decks, while food was likely stored along the walls, in corners, and overhead in bins and shelves. Clay jars, woven baskets, and wooden boxes would have held the dried foods. Now, think about water. With so many mouths to hydrate, how did they store enough clean water? Some experts believe Noah used rainwater harvesting. The ark's large roof could have collected rain into gutters or clay pots. Others think he might have filled barrels ahead of the flood. Either way, water storage was critical. This wasn't just a floating zoo, it was a floating food warehouse. And everything had to be organized, counted, and protected. One spoiled batch could mean trouble. So Noah and his family had to be careful, smart, and hardworking. Now let's talk about something people often forget when imagining the ark: waste. Thousands of animals. Every single day. That means tons of manure, urine, and food scraps. If they didn't have a way to remove it, the smell alone could make the ark unlivable. Disease could spread. The animals could suffer. So how did they manage it? One theory is gravity-based waste chutes. Think of wooden floors with slight slopes, leading waste to central troughs or collection areas. These could then be dumped over the side of the ark, perhaps through trap doors or small openings near the base. Another idea? Buckets and scoops. Maybe Noah's sons rotated duties, shoveling waste into containers, walking them to the edge, and dumping it into the floodwaters. Smelly, but necessary. Some suggest that Noah may have built composting areas. Instead of throwing everything away, the waste could be layered with dry hay to break down slowly. This would reduce smell and even produce heat, a possible warmth source during cold days. Ventilation was also key. The ark couldn't just be a sealed box. There had to be airflow. Ancient ventilation shafts or open areas near the roof could have allowed fresh air in and bad air out. Without this, the animals might have suffocated, or at least lived in terrible conditions. Noah had to think not just about the flood, but what it would take to survive inside the ark: clean food, clean water, and a way to keep everything healthy and breathable. The ark's design was not just about size, it was about function. High above the animals, likely on the top deck, Noah and his family made their home. There were 8 people in total: Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. They lived, worked, and worshiped together, surrounded by animals and endless water. Their living quarters were probably simple and practical: wooden beds or mats, shelves for supplies, and maybe even small cooking areas. But comfort was not the goal. Survival and obedience were. Each day began with work. Some fed the animals. Others cleaned the stalls. Some checked on water supplies or moved heavy sacks of grain. Everyone had a role, and everyone was busy. But what about their emotions? Imagine being inside a giant wooden ship with no windows to see the land. Only the sound of water, animals, and creaking wood. Day after day, week after week, month after month. They had no idea when it would end. All they had was faith. They prayed. They worshiped. They waited. Noah had done something the world thought was foolish. He had prepared for something no one believed would come. And now, that preparation was the only thing keeping them alive. Inside the ark, the family learned patience, teamwork, and trust. Theirs was a quiet life, full of hard labor and deep reflection. But they were together, safe in the shelter God had provided. In a world washed away by judgment, they were the only ones left. Guardians of life, waiting for the day when dry land would appear once more. And all around them, the ark stood strong, not just because of wood and pitch, but because of a design filled with wisdom, purpose, and divine direction. Noah's Ark wasn't made to sail like a modern ship. It had no rudder, no sails, and no anchor. It was never meant to go from one place to another. It had only one job: to float and survive. That's why the Ark was designed more like a giant rectangular box than a sleek boat. This shape may seem strange to us today, but it had a very important purpose: stability. When the waves rose high and the winds howled, a rounded or narrow boat could tip or roll. But a box-like structure with a wide base would stay level, even in rough waters. It could rock from side to side, but it wouldn't flip over easily. Some experts believe that Noah used ballast, heavy materials like stones or logs placed at the bottom of the ark. These weights would keep the center of gravity low, helping the ark stay upright like a floating anchor. And here's the amazing part. Modern science backs this up. Engineers have built scale models of the ark using the same measurements found in the Bible. One full-sized replica was even built in South Korea. These tests showed that the ark's dimensions were almost perfect for buoyancy and balance. Noah didn't go to engineering school. He didn't study ship design, but he followed God's instructions exactly. And what he built could truly stand against the storm. The Bible says that the fountains of the deep broke open, and the windows of heaven were opened. It wasn't just rain. It was an explosion of water from above and below. The earth cracked, the skies roared, and water came flooding in from every direction. Imagine being on the ark, waves crashing, lightning flashing, thunder shaking the skies, mountains disappearing underwater, cities and trees swept away. It was not a quiet storm. It was a global reset. Yet through all of it, the ark did not sink. It rose higher as the waters rose. It drifted safely for months, surviving what no other structure on Earth could handle. But how? Some say it was the design, the wide shape, the sealed wood, the strong beams. Others say it was divine, God's hand holding it steady. The truth is, it was both. Noah used human effort, building, cutting, sealing, preparing, but it was God's protection that made the ark a safe place in a world gone dark. That balance of effort and faith is at the heart of the story. Noah's Ark is more than an old story. It holds timeless lessons for us today. First, we learn about faith and obedience. Noah didn't wait to see the rain before building. He trusted God's warning. He worked hard. He prepared for something others couldn't see. In our lives, we may not face a flood, but we do face storms, financial problems, health battles, broken relationships. And like Noah, we're called to be ready, not with an ark, but with faith, wisdom, and action. Second, the ark reminds us that ancient people were not ignorant. They were builders, thinkers, and planners. Noah's Ark was an engineering masterpiece, well-planned, efficient, and strong. Even without modern tools, they had skills and survival knowledge that we often overlook today. Finally, the Ark is a symbol. It shows the power of divine planning. When the world turned evil, God didn't destroy it without offering a way of escape. The Ark was that way. In the same way, we are given a chance to find safety, not in wood and nails, but in faith, truth, and hope. Noah didn't need a blueprint from an architect. He didn't need to calculate wind speed or study ocean currents. All he needed was one thing: obedience. He trusted God's word, followed the plan, and saved the future. So what does this story mean to you? Maybe you're facing your own storm. Maybe you feel like you're drowning in worry, fear, or pressure. The story of Noah tells us, prepare, trust, obey, and you will survive what others can't. Now we want to hear from you. What part of the ark's design surprised you the most? Was it the food system? The waste setup? The way it stayed afloat? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And if you love diving deep into biblical mysteries and ancient truths, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Because there are more stories to uncover, more secrets to explore, and more wisdom to discover. One chapter at a time.